Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Young Romance, issue number 206, dated August 1975. This walkthrough of this romance comic is a little different than my other ones in that I largely focused on the Charleston brand. And I think those are the ones I'm going to largely focus on because they're just so much fun in kind of this batshit crazy way. But I should take a look at the romance offerings that the other two giant companies, giant comic companies, I should say, Marvel and DC had, and this is a long running one for DC. As far as the genre stuff, I think DC probably did it a little better than Marvel did. Although I think Marvel was able to profit from it better. Because while Marvel's genre, like the horror genre titles, they weren't particularly popular. They didn't have like that huge popularity that, say, Spider Man, Fantastic Four, Thor had. But nevertheless, there were a lot of fans who liked their stuff. And they were able to leverage this. Excuse my language. I'm on shrooms right now. They were able to leverage this into their black and white magazine line, which was very important to them because while it didn't necessarily constitute a large number of titles, and it certainly didn't constitute most of their core titles, nevertheless, it was something that they were able to charge like a dollar 50, $2 to the people who were willing to read those, and that was very important to Marvel and their bottom line. Excuse me. But nevertheless, I'm going to go back to this comic, singular comic. We see the cover. It's one of these ripped from the headlines. So they're making it clear this is sort of like a public service announcement. And while this story isn't a romance one, nevertheless they do. This is the demographic they wanted to reach, and this is about the dangers of hitchhiking. We see a young woman, very attractive, kind of like a young Jennifer Connelly. She has tears in her eyes, and she has them because apparently these three hoodlums, and we're talking like Happy Days level hoodlums, are here, and they're telling her that she heaped a pile of trouble on them, and they're going to heap something on her, if you know what I mean. And you can see one of the guys here. He kind of looks like Weird Al Yankovic. But nevertheless, this was a one of those very special issues. And I'll talk about the hitchhiker part of this later on because there is some gruesome real life incidences that inspired them. You don't want to laugh about those. So I'll talk about the first two stories here. One of them is truly horrible. One of them is an abortion of a love story. The other one is kind of like a lot of bad messages being sent. So nevertheless, I'm going to start off actually with a Hostess ad. It's kind of for their fruit pies. If anyone remembers Hostess fruit pies. Anyway, it turns out there's a reporter. He broke into Clark Kent's apartment. And the reason he's there is that the guys who are employing him, they're tired of Clark Kent always, getting the scoop on them. So they're like, hey, break into his apartment, see if you can find some dirt on Clark, and then maybe we can get rid of him that way. So again, they're not looking to actually improve, their product. They're actually looking to sabotage someone else's product, which is exactly how American capitalism kind of works. However, during the snooping, it turns out that this guy came across some of Superman's like additional costuming. Yeah, I guess like a sanitation worker. He doesn't have the one uniform. He has multiple uniforms. Same thing with Superman. So, however, Superman is noticing this with his X-ray vision. He chooses not to do something about it. And he definitely does something a little weird. This guy apparently has now he has legal access to Clark Kent's apartment. And he's able to invite other people into it. Like he can hold an audience. And one of the members in the audience is Clark Kent. So Clark Kent is going along with it. This is now I understand that Clark Kent has to kind of throw people off the scent that he's Superman, but this is a super simp move. Anyway, so it turns out the guy he's going to show them what's in the closet. Meanwhile, Clark's in the audience here. So it turns out there's nothing but Hostess fruit pies in there. Like, okay, well, why does Clark, why do you have so many of these perishable items in your closet? No one's asking that. No one's asking, maybe, hey Clark, can I have like a fruit pie or something? No, no, no. They just take it for themselves. So, and to a degree, this Clark brought this upon himself because he let this happen. So yeah, if you let people walk all over you, guess what? They're gonna walk all over you. And it turns out that the reporter is getting fired. Um, basically, yeah, yeah. So the reporter and the boss are basically admitting to an audience of these very influential people that yeah, they did this. That I mean, talk about a lawsuit. But everyone seems to be pretty happy with their hostess pies, including Lois, who's kind of like tweaking in. Lois, who I like that outfit Lois is wearing though. Um, and she's kind of making fun of Clark, saying, you're no Superman. And Clark is going, yeah, I'm no Superman, sure. And he winks to the audience. Going to the first story. I'm the girl you've been looking for. This story is horrible. These people are horrible. The woman, I think, is Connie. Okay, so the woman's Connie, and I think the guy is Ned. He's either Ned or Lee or something like that. He's dreadful. So it doesn't really matter what his name is. Oh, Len. His name is Len. Okay, so we got these two dreadful people here. Now it turns out that Connie actually has a few. She has some good qualities to her. She's very industrious. She's very hardworking. She's ambitious. Nothing wrong with being ambitious. She's very competent. So like no matter what job you give her, she's gonna do a good job with it. However, she seems pathologically attracted to men with a great deal of wealth. And while there's nothing wrong with a woman having that as a standard, it shouldn't be the only standard. And with Connie, that appears to be the only standard. So anyway, enough of judging Connie. Go to the story. She's in secretarial school. So she's working hard to make herself a good secretary, which unfortunately was how most women were able to break into corporate America back then, unless she had connections. She gets lots of praise. She's also working a second job. So it's not like she's just going to school and nothing else. She's going to school full time and she's working full time. I did that. Oh boy, that was brutal. Um, and I had a job where I had to deal with the public too. And yeah, I had to deal with the public in kind of a humiliating way that Connie has to do as being a waitress. And imagine being a female waitress in the 1970s and the crap they had to put up with. Ooh. So anyway, one of her co-workers was kind of like the sexy MILF, GILF, I should say. So like, so I don't know her name, but nevertheless, she is stacked for a granny. And she's noticing a couple of regulars, and she's telling Connie, why don't you kind of like, play nice with them and see whether you can get a date and see whether you can get married or something. However, Connie kind of picks these guys up as losers. So she has a good sense as to who's going to be rising, who's going to be falling. She says, "I'm going to be visiting these guys in prison if I have anything, to do with them other than taking their orders." They're being really rude and arrogant to her. One of them is being very judgmental. So, she's kind of like, I'm not going to deal with these guys. However, there's a well dressed individual comes in, and he's a regular there. And Connie's like, ears are perked up. She's like, I don't want these losers. I want this guy. And it turns out that Connie's like, Gilf, a coworker is telling her that this guy is Len Copel. He has a publishing company. He's really big. He's a big businessman, and he works love the same way he works his business, hard. He just rams through it. But Connie's kind of taking this as a challenge here. So as much as her coworker is trying to dissuade her, who knows if this guy has a granny fetish, then she's in a good shape right now. So she might be trying to get rid of some of that competition. But nevertheless, that's not what's going on here. She's kind of warning Connie about him, but Connie sees Len as kind of like a challenge. So anyway, eventually, she, Len comes in one day, and this is her table to wait over, and Len is kind of just like, he's very businesslike. He doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to do any small talk with Connie, even though Connie's a very attractive woman. And then kind of the granny coworker says, "See, I told you." And Connie's kind of a little ticked because he didn't really pay much attention to her. So, so kind of Connie's coworker says, "Listen, like, you as a waitress, you're never gonna have that type of relationship with a guy like him. He's gonna simply see you as a server. So you're just simply a human resource to him. Now, if you were to become a different human resource, like say a personal secretary, then you can kind of have that relationship that you're looking for." And Connie kind of takes this as, yeah, that's a good idea. And the fact that Connie was in secretarial school makes this idea even better. So she quits her job as a waitress, and she basically creates a position for herself at Len Copel's publishing company. Connie comes in, gives the regular secretary some business, saying that he was expecting her, when he obviously wasn't. He as she barges into the office, she's able to kind of like give Len the her resume, saying, listen, I'm the girl you're looking for. And he's looking it over. He kind of like, yeah, this is pretty good. This is kind of good of Len. Len's kind of like in business mode here. He's easily played though, which is bad, because you can lose lots of money that way, being easily played in business. But nevertheless, Connie's an attractive woman. He decides that he needs a private secretary. He didn't really need one, but she sold him the idea that he needs one, and it needs to be her. So the regular secretary, she's a little pissed off at this. She sees the con that Connie's running, but nevertheless she can't do anything about it. So anyway, she has the job nailed down. And the secretary, Len's regular secretary is like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this." So anyway, I'm gonna turn the page. You see some ads. I'm not really interested in the ads. So we're gonna go back to the story. We see Connie and Len. They're kind of interacting there, and it's a very personal. It's a very business-like relationship. There's nothing personal about it. So he's like all business with her. And Connie's kind of questioning whether she should have gone after this guy in the first place because he's that focused on business. But it turns out that, like, after 5 o'clock, he's there to have fun, and his girlfriends would come and pick him up, and they're very attractive, and he seems like a fun loving guy. So he goes from, from 9 to 5, he's Mr. Business, but then after that he's like Mr. Pleasure. Connie's seeing this because the only relationship she has with Len is this, kind of like professional relationship and nothing else. So anyway, Connie's still going, still kind of chugging it out. She has her longings for Len, but at the same time, she also has a pretty good job here. So she meets up with someone else in the office named Larry. And Connie already figures Larry is kind of like one of these broke wannabes. So she's not really taking him that seriously. However, Larry is a good looking guy, and Larry is available. So while Larry is not Mr. Right, he's Mr. Right now. And that's good enough for Connie. Because Connie knows one thing: money can't buy love, but it can rent it. So anyway, I'm going to cut that part out. So anyway, they're going on some dates. They're having fun. It looks like they're having fun. Um, he asks her if they want to go to McDonald's. Mind you, these are two corporate employees. He's trying to impress her as, hey, I can be your alpha. And his big thing is like, do you want to go to McDonald's? Because they already established that this guy's usually broke most of the time. Connie already knows this, but she's going out with him because, again, Mr. Right now. She says dig. She's fine with it, and they're eating their supersized meal. She does ask, how come you asked me for? How come you asked would I like a Big Mac with no onions? Being like, very, very controlling. But it turns out that he wanted to kiss her, which is makes a lot of sense. Thank God they didn't have the McFish at this time. Ooh boy, she had a fish sandwich and he did this to her. Ooh. So anyway, actually, Mr. Right now kind of looks like Mr. Right. They're having a lot of fun together. She's physically attracted to him, and they're kissing a lot. But anyway, turns out the relationship it's getting around the office, and Big Len is hearing about this. But Big Len isn't like finding an excuse to fire that guy. He's like, hey, you with Connie again, huh? Yeah, you guys are kind of serious there. Anyway, so Len's feeling a little jealous, but it turns out that Connie only has eyes for Len. Now there's a drawing here, and you see this kind of like this idealized college version of Len, with the sweater and kind of like the collar out. This is kind of a timeless look. The next look of like adult Len, oh my God, it is totally 1970s. It is a dreadful outfit, and it turns out that deep down inside she still has this longing for Len, and Len is kind of asking her about her personal life. And, Connie's kind of wondering, why are you asking about that? Because at this point, Connie's been conditioned to just be, kind of like, one of Len's minions at this point. Even though she does have these deep feelings for him. And it turns out that Len is kind of like showing a lot of favoritism to Connie, giving her raises, giving her compliments, stuff like this, giving her promotions, and she's noticing this, and she's kind of joking around because, yeah, Connie's not like she's not kind of like a schemer. She's saying, hey, dude, you're doing a lot for me, and I don't understand why, but thank you. And Len's saying, hey, you're one of my favorite employees, and I kind of want you to feel like one of the family. So anyway, he's complimenting her sense of style. Apparently, with those raises came, like, I guess, a change in wardrobe. So Len's kind of like liking this, and then we see a scene. This is the last page. Len still has his regular secretary. So Connie's kind of like an overglorified personal assistant. She's in on something that's going to happen here. Len's regular secretary kind of looks like Christina Hendrickson. As far as Connie, I think Connie kind of looks maybe a little like Deborah Winger. She has that brown hair though. So anyway, turns out that when Len hired Connie, he did so on a trial basis. And the trial basis is over, and this is the final evaluation. And Len is basically saying, hey, we're not going to retain your services. And Connie's confused about this because, Len has been nothing but gracious. They have a great personal relation. They have a great business relationship, I should say. They had a growing personal relationship. And then it turns out that Len says, hey, I can't have my future wife being my personal assistant. So that was sort of the catch there, that, Len, he lost an employee, but he gained a wife. And Connie's all in for this. And I guess they're going to be, the wedding said, I pronounce you wallet and indentured servant. Because really, I mean, Connie was so pathological about being with rich men. It seemed like that was the only standard she had. And at the same time, she only had like a business relationship with this guy, Len. And so, this couple's not going to make it. I mean, she'll do fine in the divorce settlement, and hopefully Len won't be rolled over. Also, another thing I should add is that guys like Len normally do not want to be with women like Connie, and this is why. It's clear that Len is a trust fund baby. People like that, particularly the guys, they want to feel like they earned their wealth. But they know they didn't. But they still want to feel like they earned it. And when they're confronted with someone like Connie, who actually did have to earn their position. I mean, yeah, there was a little trickery there, but nevertheless, Connie was someone who made something of herself. Whatever Connie got, she earned. Because they emphasize here that Connie is a terrific employee. So, and those kind of trust fund baby guys, they kind of don't really want to be around women like Connie because it reminds them that they're frauds. So, nevertheless, that's not the lesson they impart. And we're going to move on from that couple. Yeah, so basically, Len is marrying one of his employees, getting free labor to a degree. And Connie kind of marrying a wallet. So, nevertheless, we'll move on to our second story. My boy Jason. If this was an Archie story, it'd be fine. If this were a dating story, it would be fine. But it goes beyond that. There's also a couple of inappropriate things here going on. The art's nice, though, I will say. The art in the first story was kind of pedestrian, although for the most part, it was well drawn. A lot of artists would only want to work on romance titles, and the reason for that is that when they would vie for jobs at Madison Avenue with the advertising agencies, the real jobs. One of the things they had to do was they had to draw female faces really good. So a lot of artists would say, "I'll do the romance titles," simply because they can keep practice that way. So we got our couple here. It's a threesome here. It's a boy, a girl, and her dog. And oh, no, don't get those ideas. So anyway, it turns out that there is a attractive woman, kind of looks like Mary Jane from the Spider-Man commercials. She's Melissa, but they call her Missy. So even as an adult, she kind of keeps this little girl name, and she's trying to walk this really big Marmaduke type dog. The dog's too powerful for her, but nevertheless, hey, she loves that damn dog. So, but it turns out that a neighbor of hers is at the mailbox. He's trying to mail a letter, but the thing is that the Marmaduke dog is very affectionate. So it's one of these dogs, and I've encountered them where the dog thinks he weighs 10 pounds, but the dog actually weighs 100 pounds. But he acts like he's a 10-pound dog. And this is exactly the situation that's occurring here. The guy, he's getting tangled in the leash here, just as he was about to mail this important letter. So, but the girl here is just telling her, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's a big sweetheart. He's just an overgrown big boy." So anyway, we see the couple. I don't see. Oh, the guy's name is. I know the dog's name is Jason. I don't know what the guy's name is though. I guess it doesn't really matter. Okay, so anyway, so she's helping him untangle from the leash, and they're both tangled up. And at this point, oh, this is very inappropriate. It looks like he's about to rape her, and with the dog watching, of all things, joyfully watching. But nevertheless, the his name is Mike. He's a horrible person, by the way. The letter falls out of his hand. It turns out Jason grabs it, and Jason is running around, just doing dog things with it, including having a ton of saliva on that envelope there. So Missy and Mike, they're out there. They're running after this runaway dog who has the letter in his mouth, and 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 he's worried about getting bit by the dog, but she points out that if the dog has the letter in his mouth, how can he bite her? And he's impressed with this intelligence. He's saying, well, Missy, you're pretty smart there. I never figured that out." So anyway, the two are talking with each other, just like casual back and forth. So because they're having an activity, so they're kind of getting to know each other while at the same time they're running after this huge dog, and they're getting to know each other and they kind of like each other, but nevertheless, they come up with a plan because they realize that chasing the dog isn't going to do anything. Yeah, once dogs start running, forget about it. Turns out that the dog gets very jealous when someone's showing affection to Missy. So Missy tells Mike, "Hey, just get very affectionate with me." Then Jason the dog will get very jealous. And he'll come closer and kind of grab the letter. So they start embracing. And again, this is consensual. They're both going for it. The dog is just staring at them. So anyway, turn the page. See a couple ads. Kind of. This is interesting. One has a homekeeper, an attractive middle-aged woman. She kind of looks. She looks like she has a uniform, like Alice in the Brady Bunch. Yeah. Imagine Florence Henderson wearing Alice's uniform. And that would describe the woman that I'm looking at here. It says, "Are your children ashamed that you never finished high school?" And Actually, yeah, there was actually there were a lot of illiterate adults back then. I remember that. So, having a parent who not only not finished school, the K through, 12th grade, but actually could not functionally read, that was actually somewhat common back then. So it's an ad for the Wayne School, but it's interesting that kids would be like, I can't let my friends know that my mom never finished high school. Like this is the worst thing that could ever happen to a student. Okay, so the other one is a feminine hygiene product, and it turns out these are young women, and they're going through periods, literally, and they're not happy with the type of choices they have in terms of kind of like keeping themselves clean and fresh. And it turns out I think this new company came along with kind of like this different type of basically, dare I say it, douchebag tampons. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the same thing, kind of. Um, see, one of the girls, she kind of looks. She does look a little like Jennifer Connelly. If Jennifer Connelly was in a Archie comic, it would look like this girl. See, Purette tampons have no bulky applicators. Instead, a pre-lubricant tip makes insertion easy and gentle. It talks about it. Yeah, it makes me think they're talking about another product. But no, no, the girls are happy. They're clean and they're happy with their products. I remember dating this one girl who, whenever she got her periods, oh, she was so miserable. Um, we have an in-house ad. A couple of these treasury editions are coming up. These were these big, oversized editions, and again, the comic book distributors, they just simply wanted the comic book companies to put more expensive products out. These things cause all types of havoc on the newsstands because one, they were not returnable. So, so whatever the newsstand guy got, he was stuck with them. And oftentimes they would like sell these at a deep discount. They would eventually stock them down because they knew eventually the comics would sell. But nevertheless, it caused a lot of frustration amongst newsstand dealers who just wanted something nice and easy and profitable to deal with. Okay, we'll go back to the story. Mike and Missy, they're embracing and they're kissing each other. They're really falling in love. So it's going deep and deep, and it's to the point where even Jason the dog understands what's going on. Um, Jason is madly in love with Mike now. He gets a tongue full of dog saliva on his face. I hate that. I've owned dogs. I love dogs, but I will never let one lick me in the face. And they want to lick on and the lips too. Oof, never allow that. Lips that touch toilet water, they don't touch mine. So anyway, it turns out that Missy got the letter. She got the letter. She says, "Hey, it's a little wet, but it's wet with love, because Jason is a loving dog." And then Mike just tears up the letter, and Missy's like wondering, "Hey, what was all this for?" And Mike explains the story that basically there was a girl that I wanted to propose to. She's not here. She's in another state. It's a long distance relationship. So I was going to write her a letter, like in the song. But it turned out that Mike got so smitten with Missy. He says he's like, fuck that other chick. I've had a long distance relationship with this woman for years. I'm ready to propose to her. And in the course of maybe 5, 10 minutes, I was like, fuck that bitch. So that says something about Mike here. And Missy is like, yeah, 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 I'll totally marry you. And that says something about her. And it turns out that dog is the only one with any dignity. So, yeah, the dog has his dignity, but the other two do not. And another bad lesson learned. Okay, so I'm gonna go. All right, sorry. Yeah, it's still running. I'll have to make a few edits on this one. So before I go back, no, before I go to the third story, we'll take a look at Paul, the other side. This is the guy who's giving advice to these teenage girls. Although I should emphasize that based on these problems, I think the writers of these letters are a little older than just teenagers. Nevertheless, um, Paul is kind of like a sleazy looking guy. I'm sorry, I have some things digesting in me. He has a porn stash. He kind of has like that bad Elvis 1950s hairdo. So yeah, I wouldn't be taking advice from Paul. Or if I would take the advice and then do the opposite. So anyway, first letter is from Troubled. She's been going steady with a guy for about a year. They know each other pretty well. Everything seems to be going great. They're getting engaged. But then something came up where she was talking to a girlfriend and she told him that Paul was that not Paul that her guy was at the movies when he told her that he was at a family event. And it wasn't like he was at the movies with another woman. He was just with his friends. But the thing is, he lied about that situation. Kind of like he kind of like, well, I just wanted to be with the guys. I didn't want to be with you that night. So she's kind of like stressing out over this. And Paul says that this is really not a big deal. He says at first I thought it was a big deal. It's not really a big deal. He just wants a little space from you. He's asking very little of you. He's gonna marry you, and he just kind of like one night he just kind of didn't want you around, and saying it's not a big thing, and you shouldn't make a big deal about it. Because, hey, you'll go through the same thing where you'll have a girls' night out and you don't want to be bothered with him, at least for a few hours. So, yeah, he's saying don't crowd him out, and it's not a big deal. And if you make it a big deal, then the problem is with you. I agree with Paul here. Okay, another person's last letter is from Dina. She says there are two boys at school who are crazy about her. They really like her. But one of the guys has a car. And she says Bill doesn't. And I'm having a hard time deciding, you know, do I go with no car or car? That's what the gist of the letter is, basically. She so she's not looking to date a guy. She's looking to date a taxi service. And yeah, Paul calls her out on this, saying, "Hey, you seem more focused on the car than either of these guys." And, Paul's kind of saying, "Hey, listen, Lyft and Uber, they haven't been invented yet, but it sounds like you really want those products." So yeah, he's calling her out. And yeah, that's about it for the letters. Okay, so one of the things about mushrooms is they make you really hot. So I'm going to look at two things. I'm going to look at DC. DC was really going to look at this in-house ad from DC, I should say. And DC was really feeling the heat, like I am, from Marvel over the competition. They kind of feel like they have to remind their own readers about how great their product is. So there's a little bit of desperation in this. And also they want to encourage some of the readers to sort of look into other titles, because if you could be reading The Flash but you're not bothering with the horror titles or something like that, and they're coming out with some new titles and some new heroes for them to care about. Only one of them, Warlord, made any type of impact. The others did not. Let's see, Justice Inc. was a licensed property that went nowhere. Claw was a Conan ripoff. Torg was one of these interesting things where it was a caveman comic, and those used to be popular at one time. You would have caveman movies, and they kind of fell on the wayside. I found um, life in prehistoric, whatever time, to be incredibly unappealing. Uh, the problems of cavemen and cave women were problems I didn't want to deal with. So I never really read them, but they were popular one time. There's Stalker, which is kind of an odd, kind of like a medieval um, superhero during like King Arthur, like Robin Hood. That's what I think of when I think of Stalker. I know Conan was like the most popular comic at the time, but that dealt with its own mythology. That was the one exception to like a character who's totally on his own mythology that I kind of embraced because I was always a Conan reader. There was Beowulf that was based on obviously the great literary title. And there was Kong, who was a teenage caveman. We gotta get we'll have a caveman that's a teen, and the teenagers of 1975 can relate to this prehistoric teenager. Yeah. Oh man, I would have loved to have seen some of those board meetings. Okay, so we're gonna go into our last story. This is the public service announcement. This is the very special issue. It's called Hitchhiker, and this was torn from the headlines. Some of this stuff is really ugly in terms of the real life stuff. In the 1970s, there was a big push to warn the public about the dangers of hitchhiking. Hitchhiking was something that was always dangerous, but it was never in the public's consciousness. And there were two incidences that changed that. One of them happened, I think, after this issue came out, and that was the incident that really changed the country's thinking about hitchhiking. But nevertheless, around 1972, 1973, there were a score of young female hitchhikers who were murdered in Northern California, and that the notoriety from those murders really brought the consciousness, really brought to people's consciousness across the country about how dangerous hitchhiking can be. The second incident that really kind of solidified that hitchhiking is bad is I think it occurred after this. It was a woman. I shouldn't say woman. She was 15 years old at the time. 15-year-old girl was hitchhiking. I think her name was Mary Vincent. She became a public face, so she chose to come out publicly. She was picked up by this monster. He assaulted her brutally. Then he wanted to end her life. He did so. He took an axe and he chopped off both of her forearms to a 15-year-old girl. Then he threw her off a cliff, or he threw her into a ditch. Just left her there to die. So this young girl who was brutally assaulted, then on top of that, has both her forearms chopped off, thrown into a ditch. He expected her to die. This young girl found the courage to get out, walk for help, got help, got to a hospital. They were able to, obviously they couldn't do anything about the arms, but they were able to save her life. And she eventually ended up confronting this animal at trial. And it was that case that really brought the dangers of hitchhiking home, because people had to be told that hitchhiking was dangerous in the 70s, and that was one of the more successful public service announcements, because I personally 1981 might have been the last time I saw a hitchhiker, and it's known you just simply don't do that. I remember some of the media would also cover this, and one of the ones I remember the most was show called The Magic Garden.
This is the garden of make-believe, a magical garden of make-believe, where flowers chuckle and birds play tricks, and a magic tree grows lollipop sticks.
And I think the hosts, they were Carol and Paula, and they were kind of singing these nice little folk songs. They were attractive women, particularly Carol. Anyway, they had some like puppet characters. I remember one puppet character was telling the story about how he was hitchhiking, and the person in the car wouldn't stop to let him go. And it seems ridiculous at first, like this puppet is being kidnapped. But when I watched it as a kid, it really impacted to me how dangerous that was. Because that, you're in a car stuck with this adult stranger, and it's like, they don't let you off. You don't know what the hell to do. But I never found hitchhiking appealing on any level. It's something I would never think about doing. Same with going to the story. You see, yeah, they're consistent. She looks like Jennifer Connelly. This is like a young Jennifer Connelly. Kind of like some thugs, a quote thugs. This is definitely like Happy Days type thugs. Nevertheless, they're very threatening to her. And the story's told in flashback. And the girl's name is Sally, and she's a regular hitchhiker. And you see here, she's hitchhike. She kind of does profile the guy she goes into the cars with. So she's here with a friend, another attractive girl, probably about the same age, 15. Sally's telling her, "Listen, Grandpa's behind the wheel, so I think we'll be okay." Oh boy, there are a lot of sick grandpas, but nevertheless, they go into the car. Grandpa here, kind of a nice, kind of like a businessman type, is questioning girls whether, they do this activity often or not. Gramps relates that he has a daughter about their age, and he would never allow her to do this. So Gramps here is being a good Samaritan. And it's really kind of hard for these good Samaritans because on one hand they do mean well. Is that they're not going to hurt? They have no plans on hurting the person, and they're aware that there are others out there who will. But at the same time, they're also kind of enablers because as long as guys like this are picking them up, then girls like Sally are not going to think this is dangerous. You see some other instances where she's going with some younger guys. This guy kind of looks like Davy Jones. He's also, yeah, he picks her up. She's hitchhiking. So Davy's kind of picking her, kind of like hitting on her. And he's not violent. And she's kind of like flirting with him. But then when the ride's over, he says, "Oh, by the way, I have a boyfriend." So, so yeah, no. So Sally's a little bit of a manipulator and finagler. Then, turns out that she's hitchhiking, and then the car stops, and there's two guys in there. Now, Sally readily admits that red flags come up when this situation comes in. So she's not inclined to take an offer on hitchhiking. And in fact, she initially rejects these guys because when they stop to pick her up, she's saying, "Oh no, I'm really waiting for my dad here." So she kind of like, so Sally's a little on the ball here. She's a little careless, a little reckless, but nevertheless, she's not stupid. But it turns out that the guy kind of looks like Burt Reynolds, by the way, and it turns out that he's a TV producer, and he's there with his cameraman. So he's explaining the story. He's saying that he's interested in why young girls like Sally are hitchhiking, and he wants to do a story on Sally. And this, oh boy, thank God there were this news producer. He definitely had the camera off. There was nothing signed because he says to her, "Hey, listen, when you go to hitchhike, we'll just be a car behind, and we'll just follow you and watch what you do." And Holy crap! Sally buys into this idea. Oh, thank God Ted Bundy wasn't um, riding the roads at this time here. But nevertheless, there's a group of young men, about three of them, who do offer to pick Sally up as she's hitchhiking. Sally admits that she would never go into a car with these three guys, but because of the news camera guy there and them wanting a story, she felt compelled. She felt compelled to kind of take this ride. She also felt that they would be kind of like they'd provide a little bit of security. So Sally goes into the car with these guys. One of them is really thuggish, and he's making his intent known that they're looking for a little fun too. Sally does not want anything to do with that type of fun. So, but they keep talking. Basically, one guy's driving, and he's kind of just saying things, kind of like back and forth. He's mostly focused on driving. Sally's in the back with two other guys. She's in between them, so she's not like next. It's not like she's next to one of the doors, and she can just suddenly run out. She's sandwiched in between these guys. The one saving grace is that this is a convertible, so at least she doesn't feel totally locked in. See a really nicely drawn face of Sally here. She's getting scared, and she tells these guys that actually I'm working with a news reporter, and they're following us. So kind of implying that if you try to do something, you'll be identified. However, the guys kind of panic. They kind of don't take it. Sally imparts this information, but they're not taking it the way she was hoping. She was kind of hoping, hey, don't do what you plan on doing because you'll be identified. But they're like acting, hey, you narked on us. You did this intentionally. So sometimes you have to be careful about who you're dealing with, because they'll hear things differently. I mean, if you like, for example, one of the scenes I really liked in the film Black Mass was I think the girlfriend of Whitey Bulger's second in command. She got picked up and questioned, and Whitey Bulger is asking her about that questioning. And she kept saying, "Oh, they brought up your name, and I just told them that you were a really great guy, and I said that you were an awesome guy, and she didn't implicate him in any criminal way, and she said that she only said complimentary things about Whitey. Whitey didn't hear it that way. Whitey heard that she was talking about him. Didn't matter that she didn't say anything like, nothing criminal about Whitey, nothing bad about Whitey. She only had nice things to say about him. Didn't matter. Whitey heard, you're talking about me. So that's why you got to be careful about who you deal with. So these guys are freaking out here. They're on the highway. They're making it clear that she's a narc, and they caught her. They're gonna teach her a lesson. And they're driving through traffic. They're being reckless, and they're heading out to this old country home that they know about. So this is an abandoned home that I think it's one of the creep's relatives. And she's saying, "Listen, I didn't mean to hurt you guys. This wasn't nothing intentional. I was even giving you guys a warning to just let me go, and everything would have been fine." But again, these guys don't hear it that way. So she's basically being held against her will in this isolated home. She doesn't know what they're gonna do. This could be the Manson family for all she knows, like the sons of Charlie. She's terrified. However, guys notice how attractive she is, underage or not, And there's a really nicely drawn panel here. This kind of apish looking thug kind of forcing his affections on Sally, who again looks like a young Jennifer Connelly. And it's a nicely drawn. That's a nice. It's an ugly image, but it's nicely drawn. So anyway, it turns out there's one guy here who, one of the guys isn't as thuggish as the others, and she's like, "Listen, we're not here for that, and just leave her alone. She's scared." So like, at least one of the guys has a little bit of empathy for her. Kind of like this gorilla-looking guy doesn't. I'm trying to think who he looks like. He has that kind of shaggy hair, and he probably looks like a little like Lou Ferrigno. Yeah. So anyway, the other guy wins out, and he gets Lou off of Jennifer, and she's like sleeping in the attic, so she's being held against her will. She doesn't know what's up. It turns out that one of the guys, his name is Ralph, he talks to her. He's again he's not as assholish or pathological as the other two. So he's explaining the situation. Now I'm going to let you go. I'll come up with a fake story about how you were able to get out. And and basically Ralph is saying after you get out, you just pretend like you never met us. However, it turns out the two more criminal minded guys they suddenly come back early, and it turns out that there are pictures of them and the car that they drove in. Because remember, Sally warned them that hey, there's going to be a a newspaper reporter, and a cameraman following us. These two guys are acting like this is like some type of surprise. But I mean, Sally would say, "Hey, listen, I tried to warn you, but you didn't listen." They're not going to hear that. So anyway, they're furious about this. Turns out the van that they were in was stolen. So they're not going to get as much mileage out of it as they thought. They have to figure out what to do because now they could be implicated in like kidnapping. And it turns out Ralph is going to make sure that Sally isn't going to be physically harmed. And he still kind of escorts her out of the area, saying, "Listen, you want to deal with guys with me?" Okay, now this is where the story kind of goes off the rails a little bit. They try to do this romantic thing, which is really creepy and icky. One, it reeks of Stockholm syndrome. Two, this is a 15-year-old girl. They've established this is a 15-year-old girl. I don't care. 15-year-old Jennifer Connelly did not look like a regular 15-year-old Jennifer Connelly. She was still 15. So they embrace kind of grossly. She's treating it like some type of like romantic, fling here. Ralph just sees her to the bus, says, "You go home, little girl. I've already behaved inappropriately enough with you." And, and he says, remember me, Ralph, your abductor, and think kindly of me." So anyway, um, Sally goes home. She's like in her bed. She's reading the story. She's in her underwear, and she's wondering what happened to that nice guy Ralph. That guy who abducted me and who is best buddies with two rapists. Golly, that Ralph was such a wonderful guy. However, Sally did learn a lesson. Sally's going to stop hitchhiking. Doesn't matter how cute the guy is. Doesn't matter how charming. She says, "Girlie, do you need a ride?" Sally's going to say no. So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to impart this message, this is not necessarily the best way to do it, but the thing is, they're doing this in a romance comic, so they obviously felt they needed to have these elements in it. I felt it should have been, yeah, this is not how to do it. So this is the end of my walkthrough with Young Romance, issue number 206 from August 1975 on Shrooms. And I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.